welcome, my dear friends. Today the topic is about common naming of aldehydes, carboxylic acids and their derivatives, cyanides and isocyanides. Two things you have to remember in this. First point is, what is the suffix you will be using for these compounds and what the prefixes are. Once you finish up with these two things, you will be able to name commonly all these compounds. So first of all, let's talk about suffixes. So we have the following functionalities. The first functionality is the aldehyde group. This is the aldehyde group. The common name, the suffix used for this is, so we'll write here suffix. The suffix used for aldehyde group is aldehyde, directly aldehyde. Then we have the next compound, that is the carboxylic acid. This carboxylic acid is having its name as ic acid, suffix name as ic acid. Then we have the third compound, its derivative, that is C double bond OX, that is the acid halide. The name of this compound will be suffix especially, that's alkyl halide. So depending upon, अगर यहाँ पे chloride होगा, then this is alkyl chloride, bromide, then this is alkyl bromide, etc. So in general we have alkyl halide. Then the next is, it's one more derivative, that is C double bond O NH2. This is the amide and its suffix is also the same, that's amide. Then we have the next one, that is C double bond O OR. It is the ester group. The suffix used is 8. The suffix used is 8. And now you have to remember one important thing, that is जो ester का R है, you have to name this alkyl group first. Next we have one more compound, that is the anhydride. It's one more derivative. This is the anhydride group, so the name is ic anhydride. Ic anhydride. Then we have one more type of compound, that is C triple bond N, that is cyanide. इसका नाम है O nitrile. The suffix is O nitrile. Then we have one more category, that is NC. This is the isocyanide. We name it as O isonitrile. O isonitrile. So these are some of the compounds that we showed here. These are the suffixes that we are going to use for these particular compounds. Now what the prefixes are, so you have to get that point also. Once you finish with these, you will be able then to name these compounds. So we will now switch on to prefixes. So prefixes क्या है इन compounds का? हमारे पास अगर कार्बन नंबर 1 है, अगर हमारे पास एक ही कार्बन होगा एक कंपाउंड में, then the prefix will be form. So we have here prefix. इसका आएगा form. So once we have only one carbon atom in a molecule, then you will use prefix form. अगर हमारे पास 2 कार्बन होंगे, then we are having acid as the prefix. Then अगर हमारे पास for example 3 कार्बन होंगे, then you have propion. In common naming, propion. Then if we have 4 carbons, you are having butyr as the prefix. If you are having now 5 carbon atoms, then you have the prefix, that is valor in common naming. So in IPAC system you have meth, eth, prop, but, pent. So you know that, and we'll be talking about IPAC nomenclature hopefully in the next segment. But now we are actually talking about the common system of naming. So in that particular case, you have carbon number 1, that's having a prefix form, carbon number 2 acid, carbon number 3 propion, carbon number for butyl, and 5 for valor. Now if you have carbon 3, अगर आपके पास 3 carbons होंगे and 1 double bond, so there is 1 double bond and 3 carbon atoms, then you have the word acryl. You have the prefix that's acryl. So acryl is the prefix which you will use once there are 3 carbon atoms in a molecule and a double bond. So this is here double bond. So if the molecule contains 1 double bond and carbon 3, then you have the name as acryl. If you have 4 carbons and there is 1 double bond, then you have the name that is croton. So these are the prefixes which we are going to use to name the organic compounds commonly. So that is form, acid, propion, butyl, valor, and this is acryl if we have 3 carbons and 1 double bond. If we have 4 carbons and 1 double bond, it's croton. So let's have some examples now. So let me recapitulate it again first. So you have the suffixes for these compounds. Aldehyde के लिए आपको aldehyde ही suffix use करना है. For carboxylic acids you'll be using ic acid. For acid halides you'll be using alkyl halide. For amides you'll be using amide. For esters you'll be using 8 and as the suffix, but इनका जो R है, this R group, that is the alkyl group, is named first. Anhydride के लिए आपका ic anhydride is the suffix. Cyanide के लिए O nitrile, and there is isocyanide which is having O isonitrile. In the same case you have the prefixes for carbon number 1, that's form, acid, propion, butyl, valor, and carbon number 3 अगर होंगे उसमें और एक डबल बॉन्ड होना चाहिए, तब इसका नाम पड़ेगा acryl. 4 कार्बन और एक डबल बॉन्ड, we got the name croton. So let's have some examples now. For example, अगर आपके पास ये compound है, suppose you are having HC double bond O. अब यहाँ पे जो है, if it's H, it can be H or it can be here OH, it can be X, it can be NH2. So all these things. So अगर यहाँ पे H होगा तो ये aldehyde बनेगा. Then this is basically how many carbons are there? It's only 1 carbon, so it's form. क्योंकि aldehyde group है तो formaldehyde. So the name will be formaldehyde. So formaldehyde क्यों आ गया नाम? Because ये aldehyde group है तो aldehyde आया suffix, and there is 1 carbon only. For 1 carbon you are having the prefix as form, so the name of the compound is formaldehyde. Formaldehyde is the name of the compound. Now अगर आपके पास यही compound है, now instead of this H you are having OH over here, then it becomes HC double bond OH. This is the carboxylic acid group. Then you have the suffix as ic acid. The point is now there's only 1 carbon atom in it, so here the formic acid. Formic acid. So formic acid is the name of this compound. Now if you have instead of H over here you are having X, it becomes form for the single carbon atom, and X is the acid halide group. Then the suffix is alkyl halide, so it's formal halide. Had there been chloride, so it would have been formal chloride. Similarly, instead of this H, if you are having NH2 over here, the name will be HC double bond O. NH2 will be the compound, so this is the amide compound. There is 1 carbon atom only, so the name is formamide. So formamide is the name of this compound. So I hope you understand it. So form is the prefix which you are going to use for single carbon atom, and if it's H over there, this becomes aldehyde group, so it's formaldehyde. If you have OH over here, it becomes acid, so it is the formic acid. If you have X, it's formal halide. If it's NH2, it becomes formamide. Similarly, if you have now CH3 C double bond O, अगर यहाँ पे H होगा, here can be OH also, here can be X also, here can be NH2 also in the same way. So for this particular case, the name will be, since there are 2 carbon atoms, so it's having acid. Now this is the aldehyde group, so it's acetaldehyde. Now if it's instead of this H, if it's having OH, it becomes acetic acid. acetic acid, because for carboxylic acid it becomes ic acid. So acid is the word for two carbon atoms. If instead of H you are having X, it becomes acetyl halide. And if it's NH2 over here, it becomes acetamide. So we have acetaldehyde for aldehyde, acetic acid for carboxylic acid, acetyl halide for acid halide, and acetamide for this amide group. Next example we shall be taking over here is, if we have this compound CH3CH2, then there is CH2, ऐसे करेंगे हम, C double bond O, here can be H, it can be OH, it can be Cl, it can be NH2 again. So it can be any one of these. Now the point is, since there are three carbon atoms, 1, 2, 3 carbon atoms, it's propion. Now if it's aldehyde group, it's propion aldehyde. If it's OH over here, it's propionic acid. If it's Cl over here, it becomes propionyl halide. Chloride is there, propionyl chloride. If it's NH2 over here, it becomes propionamide, because propion is the prefix. Propion is the prefix for 3 carbon atoms, and aldehyde is the name for aldehyde group. If it's carboxylic, it's ic acid. If it's acid halide, it's alkyl halide. If it's NH2, it's amide. Rest is same, propion. So I hope you understand it. In the same way, if you have 4 carbon atoms, then this becomes then butyr aldehyde, butyric acid, butyryl chloride, and butyramide. If we have 5 carbon atoms, it becomes then valeraldehyde, valeric acid, valeryl chloride, then there is valeramide. So in the same way, you can use these prefixes and the suffixes to combine them to get the name of to get the common name of these organic compounds. Next example हम लेंगे यहाँ cyanides के लिए. So we have here CH3 single bond CH2 single bond Cn. So the name is here, since there are 3 carbon atoms, 1, 2, 3, it's propion, and there is cyanide. For cyanide, you are having the prefix as what? That is O-nitrile. So what you are going to use is propiononitrile. Similarly, if you have, for instance, this compound CH3 like this, I'll make it over here, CH2 double bond CH single bond Cn. अब देखिए आप, ये जो है, there are basically 3 carbons in this system. आप देख सकते हैं, एक कार्बन साइनाइड का, दूसरा ये, तीसरा ये. So there are 3 carbons and there is 1 double bond in it. If you see here, अगर अब यहाँ पे देखेंगे 3 carbons और एक double bonds, you get the name acryl. So we will use here acryl. So it's acryl. Then there is cyanide, उसका suffix क्या आता है? O-nitrile. So it's acrylonitrile. So acrylonitrile will be the name of this compound. Next हम लेंगे यहाँ one more example, that is CH2 double bond CH single bond CH2 single bond C double bond OH. अगर आप इसका देखेंगे, now there are 4 carbon atoms, 1, 2, 3, 4, and there is 1 double bond in it. So for 4 carbons with 1 double bond, the name is croton. So it's here croton, and there is the aldehyde group, so it's croton aldehyde. And again one more example, CH2 double bond CH single bond CH2 single bond C double bond OH. So there's again 4 carbon atoms and 1 double bond, so it's having the prefix croton. And there is carboxylic acid group, the suffix is ic acid, so it's crotonic acid. I hope you understand it. So this is how you can name these compounds once you remember the prefixes and the suffixes of all these functionalities. One more example we shall be taking over here in case of here, that is CH3 single bond C, CH3 single bond C double bond OH. अगर आप इसका देखेंगे, ये वाला कंपाउंड जो है, it contains carboxylic acid group, the suffix will be ic acid. अगर आप इसका देखेंगे, this is the iso type group, so it's having 4 carbons in total, 1 2 3 and 4. So it's iso. For 4 carbons you have the prefix butyr, so it's isobutyr. Then there is ic acid, isobutyric acid. Why there is iso? Because this is the fragment. At carbon number 2 there is methyl group, so it becomes iso, so we have isobutyric acid. Similarly, अगर आप यहाँ पे देखेंगे, we have be taking now on to anhydrides. So let's talk of anhydrides first. For anhydrides, if the molecule is symmetrical, for symmetrical molecules, count carbons. You have to count carbons on one side of O, one side of middle O, then name it, then name accordingly, मिसाल के तौर पर, फॉर एग्जाम्पल अगर आप देखेंगे यहाँ, so you are having this particular compound and this is basically an anhydride group over here. This is the middle O. एक साइड ये सिमेट्रिकल है because O के इस साइड डबल बॉन्ड O CH3 है, डबल बॉन्ड O CH3 है. So this is basically a symmetrical type of compound. अगर आप देखेंगे you have to count carbons on one side. So इस O के one side carbons कितने हैं? 2 है. यहाँ से भी 2 है तो 2 है. Once there are 2 carbons, so the prefix is acid. Then the name is ic acid, ic anhydride, acetic anhydride. So acetic anhydride is the name of this compound, because for anhydrides the suffix is ic anhydride and there are 2 carbons only, so it becomes acetic anhydride. Similarly, if we have this compound CH3 CH2 C double bond O, then there is O C double bond O CH2 CH3. Now this is again a symmetrical molecule because it contains ethyl groups on both sides. So कितने carbons on this side है? 3 है, 1 2 3. So it's propion. अब देखिए anhydride है तो ic anhydride आएगा, propionic anhydride. So propionic anhydride is the name. But if anhydride is unsymmetrical, अगर आपका anhydride unsymmetrical होगा, then name it alphabetically. उसको फिर नाम देना है alphabetically अगर unsymmetrical होगा. This is important. अगर symmetrical होगा तब तो डायरेक्टली आपको एक साइड से कार्बन देखने हैं कितने हैं, so accordingly you will name it. Ic anhydride is the suffix for anhydride group. But अगर आपका anhydride unsymmetrical होगा, then you have to name it alphabetically. For example, आपके पास है ये वाला compound CH3 single bond C double bond O, O C double bond O CH2 single bond CH3. So एक साइड से ethyl group है, दूसरे साइड से methyl group है. So this is unsymmetrical. So how you name it? You have to name it alphabetically. देखिए कितने carbons हैं on O के इस साइड में? 2 carbons हैं. So the word is ethyl. यहाँ पे कितने हैं? Not ethyl, it's acid. It's acid over here. कितने carbon? 3 हैं, तो it's propion. So P comes later, A comes first. So it's acetic propionic anhydride. This is how you name it. Acetic propionic anhydride. Acetic propionic anhydride is the name. Acetic propionic anhydride is the name of this compound. One more example to illustrate it further on. We have CH3 single bond CH2 single bond C double bond O, O C double bond O, CH2 CH2, then there is CH3. अब देखिए O के इस साइड से 3 कार्बन्स हैं, so it's propion. O के इस साइड से 4 कार्बन्स हैं, it's basically butyr. So we have the name as B comes first, then P. It's butyric propionic anhydride. So butyric propionic anhydride will be the common name of these compounds. So two things you have to remember. First of all, the first point is what the suffixes you will be using for these functionalities. Then what is their prefix. Once you find these things, once you kept these things in mind, then you will be able to answer all questions. And the second category, second point is for anhydrides. For anhydrides, you have to count the number of carbons on one side of O. If it is symmetrical, then name it accordingly. But if it's unsymmetrical, you have to name it alphabetically. And here आप देख सकते हैं यहाँ पे 3 कार्बन से P आ गया propion, 4 कार्बन butyr आ गया, B comes first alphabetically, so it's butyric propionic anhydride. This is how you can name these compounds. With this, I hopefully assume that we have finished the common system of naming organic compounds. In the next segment, hopefully that will be the general organic chemistry chapter 2. उसमें हम जिक्र करेंगे with regard to the IUPAC system of naming organic compounds. अगर आपने मेरी चैनल अभी सब्सक्राइब नहीं की है, please do subscribe it, like and comment ज़रूर करिएगा to give me more suggestions how to improve. Till then, take good care of yourselves. Thank you very much.